Ulysses and Naked Lunch and other texts have been, and Madame Bovary were all submitted to extreme censorship. They went to court, and if you read the court documents, you'll see, for example, for Ulysses, it's very interesting. It's important to note the legal, juridical, discursive determinations that justify excluding a text or bringing it back in. So the judge in the case of James Joyce's Ulysses, first of all, there's no question but that it's a drug, this text. This was the question also stated in France about Madame Bovary. It's a bad drug, it's a poison. Can't have it circulating freely. So it becomes an uncontrollable substance in a sense. So Ulysses, if you read the court documents, is said to be a drug, but the judge invited his 3 gentlemen friends who are of unimpeachable character, and they were each asked to read Ulysses. These are highly moral citizens, and it turned out that these gentlemen were not sexually aroused by Ulysses or anything that James Joyce had to say, and they experienced it merely as an emetic. Do you know what an emetic is? It's, first of all, it's a medicine. It's, who knows what an emetic?
Something that makes you throw up.
Right. An emetic device. It's something that will provoke elimination, usually by vomiting, by inducing vomiting. So note that it's never placed in question in the legal decision whether or not one can legitimately consider a text indissociable from a drug. It is a drug, but what does it do? Thank God that it doesn't turn you on sexually. It's much better in America if something makes you want to puke. And so the judgment is, it was therefore unanimously decided, first of all, the idea of summoning my 3 best friends who did not have erections, or I don't know what, or even determine whether they were sexually aroused or not, or are they ever, and so on and so forth. None of these questions arise. And then it says, it's very beautiful, it says, James Joyce's Ulysses is an emetic device and therefore may enter the United States of America. It's so beautiful and sublime that this is okay. Make me want to throw up, and you're welcome to this country. Again, as I reminded you, Derrida asks why it is that one wants to throw up in our shared languages. Envie de vomir. What is this desire and wish to? Why one wants to? What kind of a craving or wish or affirmation is it? So, with that happy moment, why don't we, Madame Bovary, I should say, was also treated as a drug. But the most scandalous moment, do you know what was considered most scandalous in the novel Madame Bovary? It's a moment of non-representation. This is what you'll see in a lot of censored works. It's not necessarily in the 18th, 19th, and early 20th century explicit representation of pornological proportions, but it's when something is not represented. So there's the famous carriage ride where the windows, the curtains are drawn, and there's a carriage that goes around the town, and you only see at one moment a hand throwing a shredded love letter, or actually a breakup letter, lettre de rupture, out the window. And this is what the procureur, the district attorney, was outraged by, that there was a moment in Madame Bovary where you don't know what's happening. What are they doing in that carriage that gets to, it's like an uncontrolled circulation, uncontrolled drug. What is going on? So it's paradoxically at a moment of non-representation that Flaubert gets the book thrown at him. His character witness was Baudelaire, which did not help. Mr. Baudelaire, Charlie, who had written, the Fleur de Mal. So he was an artificial paradise and poisonous, evil, beyond good and evil, drugs and flowers and plants. Yes, Kat?
I was at the Brigham Young University Library and trying to check out Lolita for a rhetoric class, and they had it in the locked room where you had to go with someone to get out and sign it out. And the man in charge, I asked him, because this is it's deceptive and that it's not explicit for the most part about an sexual encounter. And so I asked him to open it up and point to me why, specifically where these things were inappropriate. And of course he couldn't and hadn't read the book or anything, but to me that's an example of that.
But that was the gatekeeper who could keep
Yes,
it from,
so you'll see that in Nabokov as well. Lolita, Lolita, love of my loins. By the way, I have a thing that you should know the beginning of every text, you know. And I was driving Marcus crazy in NYU about how does this text start? What's the first line of this text? How does it go? So it's these texts that resist, and this takes us back to our first class, which is the pressure points of the Entzug, of withdrawal, of that which does not show itself, that which does not have presence, that Madame Bovary as a novel would be busted because there's a scene in which you don't see what's happening. You understand? And what Kat just said, that Lolita doesn't say, but insinuates. So it's the moment of non-representation that is deemed to be a poisonous drug. Yes?
Yeah, no, just going back to that judge getting his three friends to read it, I'm just reminded of another very famous court case about book banning, D.H. Lawrence.
Right.
And the prosecuting barrister made a very telling comment when he said, is this the kind of book you would want your wife or butler to be reading? You know? And there is an element of that, you know, book banning.
That's another point to be made, and this is a Madame Bovary issue, which is what happens when women shoot up fiction, or what would happen if the butler were to read this work. What would happen, by the way? What is it? What is the fear here, the phobia? That there would be revolution, that there would be insurrection, that there would be all sorts of breakdowns of institutionalized normalcy codes and so on and so forth. So it's always these moments of censorship that are legally stamped and supposedly absolutely backed up by a logic fall apart when it's like the phallus that's huge and scary in Lacan, but empty. It's, you know, a bad example, but a good example, helpful example would be The Wizard of Oz, who directs everything, and it's the wizard, it's the metaphysical subject behind the whole apparatus of appearances and rules and regs and stips. And then you finally see that it's this little fragile, pathetic schlub, as we say now, behind the wheels. Yes?
Yeah, I just want to bring what you were talking about, the authorities, what's at stake, and why it makes sense and stuff. And then there's a story about Beirut, about drug bans. So I come from Singapore.
Right.
There's death penalty of any form of drugs you bring it. To the point that some of my friends who go to California and come back with shaved heads so that you can't check and stuff like that. So it's pretty strict. And we try to figure out why they were so strict about it. And it turns out, like we sort of speculate, it's plainly because of economy. Because if you have a bunch of people who are all drugged up, they can't work. They're not efficient. Means that they can't produce as much as they can if they're sober. And so that would cause a bit of structural
Which is a
damage.
fantasy, because, yeah,
Exactly.
you're right.
It's a fantasy. And on top
Because
of
a lot of people work very well on coke
That's
or
one layer.
whatever.
And then there's another layer on top, which is if Singapore is trying to be the Bank of Asia, is trying to be the bank place. So why would you put money in a bank? It's because it's safe. Right? That's the assumption, right? So what they do is that they have a lot of drug lords from around the world put their money in Singapore, but they don't deal in Singapore because they're safe. So that's another layer on top of why. Like there's so many layers of why they would do something. So
And one thing we haven't been able to address is the situation of narco dollars, the way that that economies, drug economies, are haunted by capital flow, and the way, you know, these are parallel and usually highly irrational. Like, is everyone happy that these drug laws in the United States created these power cartels in Mexico? Yeah, things are much better.
Well, HSBC just got in trouble for laundering $26 billion of cocaine cash.
Right. It was,
I mean, I was just gonna, you know, I kind of made my point, but then there's California, which is the opposite. I wanted to ask, like, what is, like, if I have a prescription for, like, I don't know, deathly amounts of modafinil or Xanax or other, you know, medically sanctioned drugs, am I allowed to do those in Singapore?
no, you can't do it for that.
I don't know how anyone works at a bank without that stuff. Like, seriously, like, I can't think of
There's no
a
prescription
hard-working
for
person without
any
prescription.
There's no prescription.
We need a prescription for chewing gum. Yeah, you can't buy chewing gum in Singapore. You have to get a prescription as a form of cure for narcotics, like, you know, cigarettes.
and why not? I mean, this brings up the question of anything we introject, internalize, eat, interiorize. This is very rigorous, which is anything that goes in here down the hatch has either medicinal or neutral maybe, or narcotic possibilities. Yes, Sasha.
As you were saying earlier about texts being considered as drugs and the mixture of obscenity and non-presence, like how during the trial, right, wasn't it the judge deploying this, I can't define obscenity, but I know it when I see it?
Yeah.
So again, you have this phantasm, the idea of perception, being able to suss out what is and what is not real, and the kind of interplay of obscenity that is clearly...
Yeah, so if anyone wants to look at obscenity laws, that's very, very murky, and it's also what I can't define it. Really? Then get off the bench and leave us alone, you know? But you can't define drugs, you understand? That's one of the points, that, and anything can serve as a drug.
Right.